Hello, witchy people! Welcome to another episode of Putia Bruja. I'm Bex Carlos, your host. So, for today's episode, I always think it's so cool when I meet people who, because even though I've been practicing and stuff, like, in some ways, I still kind of like feel like a baby witch in the sense that, like, when I speak to people who have been doing it for like 10, 20, whatever many years, and it's very humbling at times. And I really do like that because I think that we do need to, obviously, I think that we have to check our elders at times because sometimes they can have, incorrect opinions of the world. But I think that being able to speak with practitioners who have so much more experience, who have like gone through what you've gone through in a sense, it's very important. So for today's episode, I talked to Sandra Chiaverini, and we talk about how she's been practicing for about 25 years. She's someone who has grown with the craft, and I think that it's very important to get perspectives like that. We talk about like flower magic, we talk about herbalism, and it was just a really fun conversation. Let's get into it. So today I'm super excited to have Sandra on the show. Sandra is a fellow bruja, but also one that also practices flower magic. So I'm always super excited to talk to those types of witches. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's very exciting.
Tell us a little bit about kind of what started your bruja journey. Like what kind of got you on this path?
Well, since I was little, I've always seen things and people that aren't here, like ghosts. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to explain it. And I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. So I kind of thought when I was a little girl that I was seeing like crazy things, that I was like crazy. And then as I got older, I started to understand that they were ghosts. And then when I was 16, The Craft came out. I don't know if you remember that movie.
Love that movie.
I love that movie. But that movie really is what made me think, I wonder if what I can do might be related to witchcraft. And then I started finding out about my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, and she had been a wise woman, a midwife, and the local witch in her town. And she had done rituals and spells and stuff like that. But all of that was lost when she passed away because my aunt, her daughter, was very religious. And so she burned all of her books and all of that stuff that was supposed to go to my dad and then eventually to me. So I never got any of that. I never knew any of that until I was 16 and I started talking to my dad about this. And then I just started going to Barnes and Nobles after I saw the movie and kind of reading up on things. And I started out as a Wiccan because it seemed like that was everything out at the time was Wicca this and Wicca that. So I started out as a Wiccan and then made my way over the years to being a bruja and acknowledging that this is what I am and this is what I do, and feeling very comfortable with that word bruja because I wasn't comfortable with it. And I would always say I'm a Wiccan, and it took a long time. And now I've been practicing for like 25 years now.
That's so impressive that you've been practicing for a good chunk of your life.
Yeah, it's grown with me, and little by little, I've incorporated things from all different religions. So I like to think of myself as an eclectic bruja.
Word on the street is that my grandmother used to be a bruja, and you can only take that stuff with a grain of salt because I also think that like anybody being called a bruja, I think that it could also just be like they're quirky, eclectic people.
Yeah.
And so, I always took it with a grain of salt, but I feel like, do you ever just find yourself doing things and you don't even have to think about it? Like you're so deep in what you're doing. And then when you have a moment to think, you're like, what am I doing?
It does happen. And then before you realize it, you're doing stuff that you didn't even know you could do because it just comes natural now.
Yeah. I know that you practice like flower magic. How did that sort of come to be? Because I know for a lot of people, when you talk to them about specific types of magic, it takes like that aha moment. I can do that too. What was your aha moment?
It did take that. Like I said, I've been practicing since I was 16 and I've been using cannabis since I was about 22. But it wasn't until my late 30s that I kind of put the two together and was like, wait, what? I can probably use this. And then it started out small, just, charging my cannabis in a jar by the moon or putting crystals with it to charge, and then writing intentions on the joint paper, just writing whatever my intention was and rolling it and focusing on that while I smoked. And it just kind of evolved from there. I guess I would say my aha moment was stumbling upon a book called Ganja Yoga. And it was a very good read. It's all about how we can use cannabis to enhance our yoga experience and practice mindfulness and being in the present. And then it kind of went from that into, I bet I could use this for manifestation. And then I bet I could use it this way. And then it just evolved from there.
So I haven't charged my cannabis in the moonlight, but that's a really good idea. I've talked about this in a previous episode, but I really like Juicy J papers. They have little images on them. So I'll use the cake one for like when I'm trying to attract my life be like easy like cake, you know what I mean? I like to add lavender sometimes because it'll do like an internal cleansing.
Yeah.
And it's not too harsh. Like I like to do like a maybe 80-20, like 80% cannabis, 20% lavender that's been like grinded up. Do you use any herbs for like internal smoking as well?
I do. I depending on what I'm doing, I mix it with mugwort for sleep and like lucid dreaming, and then Damiano when I want to do the vision quests.
Oh, okay.
I mix and I do the same like you, 80-20, and then I mix it with the Damiana, and I usually save that for the night, and then I'll just smoke that joint under the moonlight and focus. I close my eyes and just focus on what I can see, and different visions come. And usually that night, my dreams end up being crazy too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good effect to see kind of like what you're thinking that you didn't realize you were thinking, and it just kind of brings all these things up in images.
Whatever you add to your cannabis, I always suggest that like one, do research. Don't take in something that's toxic.
Yeah.
But use things that are accessible to you. With most of my magic, personally, I don't like to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. I like to use what's handy. I like to use what's around because I think that's kind of how our ancestors would do it. Like, I don't think our ancestors were like, I have to go buy all these things to curse this witch, like
Yeah.
it was just like, well, what do I got? So, but I want to circle back to the yoga thing because before I was even like really practicing, I think around 22, I had this experience where like a friend of mine and I, like, we just got like super high. And for some reason, we were like, let's do yoga. And it is really amazing when you smoke cannabis and you do yoga, like how much more intention and purpose and even just like the feeling that you have when you do it is so different.
It really is. And it feels like some of the poses may be still uncomfortable, but you're able to kind of withstand it more. And you're thinking the whole time. So I don't know. It helps me a lot when I do yoga to focus and on what movement I'm doing and to be in that present moment.
For being just very aware of like how your body moves. Because I think that sometimes, all of us, we take our bodies for granted. You know what I mean? Like, we're just like, yeah, I can do this, whatever. But there's something about when you're really high and you're doing yoga, especially when it's like an intention based thing, not like when I was 22 and just trying out stuff, just try it out. But
Yeah. When you're older and you're like, I want to help my body today.
yeah. Do you stretch every morning when you get up?
Yes, but that just started, a few years ago. I did it for many years.
Okay. So I'm getting to that point where I'm like, first thing I do when I wake up, I need to stretch. And, I like to just fill my day with intention. So it's like, I'll play WAP, Cardi B's WAP, the whole duration of me stretching on my right side. And then I'll go to my left side and I'll start it over. And, so that gives me like a good 7-minute stretch. And it also is just like, that's my day up for like female empowerment. Because it's hard out here for women. It's hard out here,
It is hard.
for femme presenting people. It's just hard. So
It's good to have that empowerment and to start the day off with that intention, like you said. I tend to do that too. Try to set up my day. I try to put as much magic into my life as I can, even if it's just making my coffee with moon water and then thinking the whole time, it's going to be an amazing day. It's going to be a successful day.
yeah. You know what you should do? What might be a good thing to add to your coffee? Like either when it's brewing or when it's done, add a cinnamon stick in there because it helps with attraction too.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
So I think it's important to use your voice. You know what I mean? I think that if you listen to the podcast, that's pretty obvious. But I do want to take a moment to highlight something that Melissa at Temperance Home and Bar is doing. So Melissa gives back a lot, but she is scheduling on election day. She is doing readings to benefit Raices, which for any adults that have been put in the camps, it helps ensure bonds so that they can be taken out and, get back to their families and get back to real life. And it provides lawyers for the children. So if you are someone who enjoys tarot, please consider on election day, schedule a reading and benefit a really great cause. All right. Thanks again. The information for that is in the show notes. Let's get back into the episode. Well, Sandra, one last thing, because it's October and we love ghosts here. Do you have like a story of I guess a ghost story?
I have so many. I guess let me tell the first one. So I guess I would say my first memory actually is when I was 3 years old. We lived in Venezuela at the time, and I was at a carnival or something with my dad, and he was about to put me on one of those little boats that they go, in a circle on a little fake river for little kids. And he had just put me in the little boat, and I was looking over his shoulder, and I saw a very horribly burned man. And he was like, his clothes were burned onto his body, and his face was really badly burned. His whole body was really badly burned. And I got so scared that I peed my pants. I would go on to see that man almost every day of my life until my 20s. I never knew who he was. I never knew what he wanted. If he wanted to pass a message to me and he knew that I could see him and I just didn't get it. I never knew. But when I got to my 20s, I learned how to stop seeing the dead people everywhere. And so I kind of learned to block that. And I stopped seeing him after that. So I don't know if he went away or I just stopped seeing him and then he went away. But for most of my life, I'm 40 now, and I saw him until I think I was like 23, 24. So I used to see him all the time. Never understood what he wanted or why he was there. He was terrifying to look at. Even though he didn't do anything threatening, just looking at him terrified me. And I remember being a little girl when the Freddy Krueger movie came out. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I'm seeing. That's the guy. And I remember being so scared and then realizing, no, that's just a movie. It's not it. And then as I got older, I never was able to figure out who he was, but he was around for a very long time.
Yeah, that's terrifying. I don't like that. More terrifying when you see the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And now that I'm older and can look back, I'm like, he probably just wanted to say something to somebody, and my dumb ass was just like, no, you're scary, get away. But he, it was probably something simple. Maybe nobody else could see him, and I was the first person who had seen him in a while. I don't know.
Let me assume that you were raised Catholic, right?
I was raised Catholic.
So yeah, I think that, typically those of us who were raised Catholic, even if we see these things and they're not meant to harm us, they're just trying to let us know. I think that we have such an unconscious bias towards spirits, and we've just like been taught that it's demonic, it's evil, and sometimes we by default think that we're, evil or demonic. So you just did what you could at the time with the knowledge you had, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, now like I have my own children, and my son, since he was little, has also seen spirits and ghosts, and so I've tried to teach him. So nobody taught me, so he's been practicing with me since he was about, like 3 years old. So he knows how to block it, and he knows how to use energy, and he knows how to charge things, and he knows what we do in the moonlight. And so because I had nobody. I thought I was crazy. I had nobody to tell me this is not crazy, you're just seeing things other people can't see. I just thought I was different and I was crazy and I was hallucinating, and so I didn't want that for him. So I've taught him that it's okay. We see things. Some people see things, some people don't, and we just have to do the best we can with the abilities that we have.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Sandra. Well, how can our listeners support you? Or, if you have a cause you'd like to mention, that'd be wonderful too.
I always like to donate to the end of the backlog for the rape kits. They go in and they pay for the backlog. There's so many rape kits that haven't been tested yet because there's not enough money. So I think it's called End the Backlog. and it's just to donate so that they can get these rape kits tested and get these people off the streets.
I will put the link to that in the show notes because that's a cause that I'm all about too. All right, and to support the End the Backlog, that is in the show notes. I really appreciate Sandra bringing mention to that because that is something that I feel like resources should go to, but unfortunately don't. So please support that. I appreciate you listening to this episode, and we look forward to tomorrow. Thanks again. Bye.
Mm-hmm.